Ruth Davidson.
Thank you. Presiding Officer, in the 2014 independence referendum, did the Scottish Government consider oil as just a bonus or as the basis of the Scottish economy?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, certainly I consider oil to be a big bonus. It's certainly been a huge bonus for the United Kingdom. It's been £300 billion worth of revenues for the United Kingdom. And of course, I'm not the only person that thought it was a bonus. In 2014, the Prime Minister came to Aberdeen and he said that there would be, if Scots voted no, a £200 billion oil boom bonus for Scotland if Scotland voted no in the referendum. So what I would say to Ruth Davidson is, yes, oil is a bonus and it's propped up the United Kingdom economy for many years.
Ruth Davidson.
The Deputy First Minister is sticking to the line that oil is a bonus and not the basis for the Scottish economy. It's the one that's going to make every single person in Scotland richer if we're independent, in the way he tried to sell it just 3 years ago. Yet this week, we had Andrew Wilson, the head of the SNP's Growth Commission, finally exposing the truth. He admitted we did have oil baked into the numbers and it was indeed a basis. In other words, the entire economic prospectus on which the SNP based its entire case for independence was bogus. It's a simple question now, Deputy First Minister. Is Andrew Wilson right?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, I've explained to Ruth Davidson already the importance of oil to the United Kingdom economy and the huge bonus it has been to the UK over these 40 years. And of course, the Prime Minister, he was here in Scotland in 2014 saying there would be a massive oil bonus for Scotland if we voted no. And of course, there were other promises made to Scotland if we voted no. The same day that the Prime Minister suggested there be a £200 billion oil bonus, he said to people in the north east of Scotland, vote no and there'd be a £1 billion carbon capture project for Peterhead. That's been cancelled, Presiding Officer. And then, of course, there was the other almighty commitment of the No campaign, vote no to stay in the European Union. Oil, carbon capture, European Union, the No campaign was shattered by these broken promises.
Ruth Davidson.
The question was about John Swinney's oil claims being taken apart by his own side. No wonder that aspect was the one aspect he didn't want to talk about. Of course, we all know what's happened since the Deputy First Minister was talking about all of our big bonuses. Oil receipts have absolutely collapsed. And there's a simple question that people across Scotland now have. And the question is this. Without those oil receipts, can the Deputy First Minister point to any independent analysis that shows that Scotland's economy would fare better right now if we were outside the United Kingdom?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, I think what people in Scotland would want to hear is more action. Is more action to support the North Sea oil and gas sector, and that's what this government has been arguing for, what the Finance Secretary has been arguing for, and what the UK government has been doing is talking about possibly setting up a talking shop, which they talked about setting up a year ago, and it hasn't even materialised yet. And of course, we know why the Tories are not interested in supporting the oil and gas sector. Their spokesman, Alec Burnett, let the cat out of the bag. He argued there should be no measures taken to support oil and gas in Scotland. Now, we know that Mr Burnett is a bit poor at declaring his own interests, but he's certainly bad at standing up for the interests of the North East of Scotland. So, at a time when the onshore productivity of Scotland is increasing at 4 times the rate of the rest of the United Kingdom, which the Chancellor cited in his budget statement yesterday, I think there's grounds for a great deal of optimism about the strength of the Scottish economy.
Ruth Davidson.
Presiding Officer, I have the response from the oil and gas industry here to yesterday's budget. We welcome the Chancellor's response to our call to maximise recovery of the remaining UK oil and gas reserves. The oil and gas industry can welcome the moves from the UK Government. It's no surprise that the Scottish Government don't, because they do nothing for the north east of Scotland. No. But again, people at home will have noticed the Deputy First Minister didn't answer the question, and it's a shame, a real shame, that there is nobody on the SNP front bench who's prepared to be as upfront as Mr Wilson is on the radio. This morning, we had the First Minister gunning for a referendum on independence next year. She called it common sense. I call it nonsense, because most people in Scotland do not want it. Most Scots don't want to go back to the division and uncertainty of another independence referendum. Most Scots think it's irresponsible to talk of a second referendum, which is only going to damage the Scottish economy yet further. That is common sense, and why does the Deputy First Minister not listen to them?
Deputy First Minister.
Sir, on the substance of action to help the North Sea oil and gas sector and the north east of Scotland, let me set out for Ruth Davidson 3 things that this government has done in the recent past. The First Minister launched a decommissioning challenge fund to support the development of the supply chain to tackle oil and gas decommissioning. We launched, secondly, a £12 million transition training fund to support individuals to retain their skills within the sector. And thirdly, the Energy Jobs Task Force has remained focused on supporting those affected by the downturn in the oil and gas sector, and will remain so in the years to come. So that's the concrete action we've taken to support the north east of Scotland and the oil and gas sector. Now, it's interesting that Ruth Davidson moves on to the question of the Constitution, and no wonder, because it's been very topical today. Because today we've seen an opinion poll published just before question time, which shows support for the constitutional question on independence at 50-50 in Scotland. So what that says to me, and we shouldn't be at all surprised by those numbers, because that's the people of Scotland being exposed to the hard right politics of the Tory party, seeing the mess they're getting us into about Europe, and deciding that it's time for this country to choose its own future.
Before the independence referendum, John Swinney said, "The early years of an independent Scotland are timed to coincide with a massive North Sea oil boom."
Order.
But yesterday,
Order.
the Office of Budget Responsibility confirmed that North Sea oil and gas actually cost the Treasury money last year. So can the Deputy First Minister tell us, why didn't the SNP tell the people of Scotland the truth about oil?
Deputy First Minister.
Isn't it revealing that at their first available opportunity, they've come back together again? It's like they've never had a moment apart. I would have thought after the calamity that Kezia Dugdale led the Labour Party into in the 2016 election, she might have learnt to have nothing to do with that lot over there.
Kezia Dugdale.
Presiding Officer.
Please, can we have a little bit... Excuse me. Can we have a little bit of order, please, and slightly less applause? Kezia Dugdale.
Presiding Officer, the Deputy First Minister can shout and scream and clap all he likes about better together alliances, but he cannot escape the reality of his own words. And here are some more. It is clear that future tax receipts from North Sea oil and gas will be substantial and represent a significant resource for the people of Scotland. And the reality, Presiding Officer, is this. People in Scotland were given false hope by the SNP based on a false prospectus. They were told that we could only build a fairer country with independence. But now we know beyond all doubt that that just wasn't true. New analysis published by Labour today reveals that the SNP's...
There is too much noise in the chamber today. Kezia Dugdale.
They'll be laughing when they realise it's based on their own numbers, their own record. The SNP's estimate for oil revenues in what would have been the first 2 years of an independent Scotland could be out as much as £21 billion. In old money, presiding officer, that's £21,000 million. That would deliver turbocharged austerity, and it would have made that fairer nation all but impossible to build. Does the Deputy First Minister feel any guilt about offering the people of Scotland such false hope?
Deputy First Minister.
If we're going to pass around this chamber accusations about guilt, I think the Labour Party has got to think long and hard about how they've enabled the Tory party to govern the United Kingdom because of their awful stance in the referendum in 2014, which ushered in a Tory government that has taken us out of the European Union, that's punishing vulnerable individuals in our society and damaging the life chances of individuals. The Tory budget yesterday is assessed by the Resolution Foundation to be consigning people in this country to the lowest level of wage growth in over 200 years. That's what the Labour Party are guilty of ushering in by their stance in the referendum.
Kezia Dugdale.
In the midst of that rant, the truth John Swinney can't escape from is that the economic case for independence is well and truly bust. And we all remember his leaked paper. We all remember his leaked paper.
Order. Excuse me. Will the chamber please settle down? There are too many interruptions. There is too much applause, too much shouting. Will you please listen to the questions and listen to the answers? Kezia Dugdale. Excuse me. Please. Kezia Dugdale. Thank you.
We all remember the leaked paper, presiding officer. That was the one where John Swinney admitted privately that the sums didn't add up. The oil revenues were volatile, and that pensions would be at risk under independence. Nicola Sturgeon has again today backed herself into a corner on a second independence referendum. Maybe the Deputy First Minister can apply some common sense to help her get out of it. He has looked at the numbers. He knows the case for independence lies in tatters. So why won't he scrap the plans for a second independence referendum?
Deputy First Minister.
I say to Kezia Dugdale that the Labour Party, if they want to progress, have got to learn the lessons of the mistakes that they made in 2014. And the arguments and the narrative and the explanation that Kezia Dugdale is coming out with today, her entire line of attack, could have been delivered by Ruth Davidson. It's almost as if Kezia Dugdale wandered into the Scottish Exhibition Centre last weekend and listened to the speeches by Theresa May and Ruth Davidson and came to this Parliament to deliver them to members of Parliament. I've got some helpful advice to the Labour Party. Get onto Scotland's side and then you might progress.